you imagine if I used the F-bomb? You know what it would be? I tell people, it would be the electric chair.
There's the childish nicknames.
Very people who perpetrated the lies that I was an agent of Russia, like Adam Shifty Schiff and others.
The crazy conspiracy theories.
If you look for a job and you give up looking for that job because after 4 or 5 months you can't find one, you are considered statistically employed. We have
this weird obsession with crowd sizes.
This is the Rebel Alliance. Last week, I condemned political violence on this podcast, and I still condemn political violence. The phrase I never used was that political violence has no place in the United States of America. Our history is full of political violence. It was wrong then, and it's wrong now. And it comes in waves. Between the end of the Civil War and just after the beginning of the 20th century, 3 presidents of the United States were assassinated: Abraham Lincoln, James Garfield, and William McKinley. In the 10 years between 1960 and 1970, a long list of people died by assassination. John F. Kennedy, Bobby Kennedy, Malcolm X, and Martin Luther King Jr. were among them. Over the summer of 2024, one of convicted felon Donald Trump's supporters attempted to assassinate him at a rally in Pennsylvania. We may never know why. And now, the CEO of United Healthcare, Brian Thompson, has been assassinated. It feels like it is starting again. And this time, I fear it could be worse than it has been at any time in the past. I have heard over and over again that the reason for this recent wave of political violence is that people are calling out convicted felon Trump for his atrocities. This is absolutely not true, and if you say this, you are a coward or a moron. It was cowardly when President Biden said it in July, because he knows it's not true. You cannot brew an environment of political violence for a decade and then act surprised when that violence is also turned against you. I understand the urge to try to be bipartisan on President Biden's part, but the MAGA people, one of whom shot at Trump, are not willing to be bipartisan. They want everything their way and for everyone to agree with them, just like Trump himself wants everything his way and for everyone to agree with him. The promises of Trump's entire campaign and the actions he has taken since being elected could be collected and titled "Starting a Dictatorship for Dummies." A new wave of political violence is coming, and I still condemn it. However, there comes a point when people in power start to abuse that power, and if the people who have sworn to protect the Constitution from those domestic threats refuse to do so, it becomes the responsibility of the people to protect the Constitution. Food for thought. Back to Brian Thompson. On Monday, Luigi Mangione was taken into custody for questioning by police in Altoona, Pennsylvania. He was carrying a 3D printed gun with a suppressor, a mask, and a stack of fake IDs, which were all consistent with items used in the killing of Brian Thompson. After several hours of questioning, he was formally charged on 5 counts, including illegally carrying a firearm. He also had on him a manifesto stating his anger and frustration with the healthcare industry. This is also consistent with the crime, as it is believed to be a targeted attack. The anger and frustration with the healthcare industry is understandable. We must be vocal about their discrimination, about their collusion with Republican politicians. But shooting at them is not how we handle the situation. But as a new wave of political violence begins, let it be known that the sole responsibility for it lies with the man who has been threatening to jail or kill his political opponents for almost a decade. The man who has been calling on his supporters to commit acts of violence on his behalf for almost a decade. The man who will use any means necessary to illegally stay in power, even violence. Donald Trump. This is all on you, Mr. Trump. In case you thought racism might be dead, Daniel Penney was found not guilty this week in the killing of Jordan Neely. If this story has escaped your notice, I'll give you a bit of background on it. Neely had boarded a New York City subway train on the 1st of May, 2023. It bothered other passengers when he began screaming that he was hungry, thirsty, and needed a job. Eyewitnesses said that he neither threatened nor assaulted anyone. Daniel Penney is alleged to have taken Neely in a chokehold to restrain him. A video taken on a cell phone shows Penney continuing the chokehold on Neely for several minutes, including more than a minute after he had stopped struggling and gone limp. When the NYPD and the New York City Fire Department arrived on the scene, Neely had a faint pulse and was given cardiopulmonary resuscitation. He was then taken to a hospital where he was pronounced dead. 3 days later, Neely's death was ruled a homicide by compression of the neck, and Penney was charged with second-degree manslaughter. Almost 2 months later, an additional charge of negligent homicide was added. The trial judge would later dismiss the manslaughter charge, and Penney was acquitted on the negligent homicide charge. Given that there is video of Penney keeping Neely in a chokehold until he went limp, neither charge was enough, and the acquittal is inexcusable. As to why the acquittal happened, all you have to do is look up pictures of Jordan Neely and Daniel Penney. Guess which one of them is black? Still ahead on Rebel Alliance, we'll take a look at this week in history. But first, let's go looking for this week's most moronic morons. Now there's a theme in the morons this week. Let's see if you can pick up on it. In third place, convicted felon Donald Trump. According to Article 2, Section 1, Clause 7 of the Constitution, and I'm paraphrasing, the sitting president should not be operating or receive any pay from any business that he is involved with. He is free after he leaves office to again start collecting pay, so long as it is not from the time while he was in office. Meanwhile, as Trump prepares for his second presidential term, he is launching a line of perfume and cologne. And he advertised his new fragrances, which probably smell like garbage, on Truth Social over the weekend, using the likeness of First Lady Jill Biden. Dr. Biden, sue him. In second place, it's convicted felon Donald Trump. Another of Trump's posts on Truth Social said, quote, "The Democrats are fighting hard to get rid of the popular vote in future elections. They want all future presidential elections to be based exclusively on the Electoral College," unquote. I don't even know where to begin unpacking this. First off, Presidential elections are already based exclusively on the Electoral College. If they weren't, Trump wouldn't have been elected in 2016 when he lost the popular vote by 3 million votes. Also, Democrats have won the popular vote in 7 of the last 9 elections. We would like to go exclusively on the popular vote. Moron. But in first place, why, it's convicted felon Donald Trump. And again, this is from another one of his Truth Social posts. Quote, "It was a pleasure to have dinner the other night with Governor Justin Trudeau of the great state of Canada." Unquote. You blithering idiot. Justin Trudeau is the Prime Minister of Canada, and Canada is not a state. It's a country. Any first-grade geography student can tell you that. No matter how much nonsense you spout, there's no way you can make Canada the 51st state. And even if that were a possibility, it wouldn't change that Justin Trudeau is still at this time the Prime Minister of the country of Canada. Your blatant stupidity has earned you the dishonor of being this week's most moronic moron. And now, a look at this week in history. On December 8, 1980, John Lennon was shot and killed by Mark David Chapman, an obsessed fan. Chapman had received an autograph from Lennon earlier in the day and remained at the scene of the shooting until police arrived. For a week, a vigil was held outside Lennon's apartment building by hundreds of his bereaved fans. On December 8, 1894, James Thurber was born in Columbus, Ohio. Thurber would go on to become a humorist, artist, and master storyteller. He would publish many popular drawing and story collections, including The Owl in the Attic, The Seal in the Bedroom, and My Life and Hard Times. On December 9, 1979, a commission of scientists declared that smallpox was officially eradicated. In 1967, the World Health Organization began a worldwide effort to identify and stamp out remaining outbreaks of the disease. By the mid-1970s, smallpox was only known to be present in the Horn of Africa and parts of the Indian subcontinent. In 1977, the last naturally occurring case of smallpox was diagnosed in Somalia. Smallpox is the only infectious disease affecting humans that has been officially eradicated. On December 10, 1974, Representative Wilbur D. Mills, a Democrat from Arkansas, resigned as the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee following the first truly public sex scandal in American politics. In October of that same year, Mills had been stopped by police while driving at night with his lights off. He was visibly intoxicated and his face was scratched. The woman in the car with him, later identified as a stripper who went by the name Argentine Firecracker, exited the car and jumped into the tidal basin near the Jefferson Memorial. Mills at first denied all the allegations, but later admitted he had attended a party where the stripper was present. He resigned 2 months later. On December 12, 1997, Michael Carneal was indicted as an adult at the age of 14 on 3 counts of murder and 5 counts of attempted murder. 11 days earlier, he had used a pistol to fire 11 shots into a group of students at the high school he attended in Kentucky. Even though he was charged as an adult, Carneal's young age meant he was ineligible for the death penalty. He pleaded guilty but mentally ill and was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole in 25 years. On December 13, 2000, Al Gore conceded that year's presidential election to George W. Bush after weeks of legal battles concerning the recounting of votes in Florida. Gore won the popular vote by more than 500,000 votes, but narrowly losing Florida cost him the Electoral College 271 to 266. Gore stated that he strongly disagreed with the Supreme Court decision that ended his campaign, but that, quote, partisan rancor must now be put aside, unquote. Bush would serve 2 terms as president. On December 14, 1863, Abraham Lincoln granted a pardon to his sister-in-law, Emily Todd Helm. Helm was the widow of a Confederate general, and the pardon was one of the first under Lincoln's proclamation of amnesty and Reconstruction. As part of his plan, former Confederates would be granted amnesty if they took an oath to the United States. The option was open to all but the highest-ranking officials of the Confederacy. Although Lincoln's sister-in-law was granted the pardon, she never took the required oath. And that's this week in history on Rebel Alliance. Since Donald Trump is so obsessed with crowd sizes, how about in 6 weeks' time, we show him the largest crowd to ever peacefully protest a presidential inauguration? Remember to do your part by not patronizing businesses that support MAGA. Let's bankrupt them. Thank you, Rebels, for being part of the Alliance, and thank you for listening. Please subscribe to Rebel Alliance on Spotify and YouTube. If you know someone who should be listening to Rebel Alliance, please send it to them and ask them to subscribe as well. So that's Rebel Alliance for this week, 6 weeks until the inauguration of lame duck, sex offender, dissociative fugue president, convicted felon Donald Trump, and 214 weeks until the scheduled end of his presidency. Do what you can to resist, and in the meantime, keep breathing, drink water, take your vitamins and meds, and sleep when you can. Until next time, never back down.
We're subsidizing Canada to the tune of over $100 billion a year. We're subsidizing Mexico for almost $300 billion. As if we're going to subsidize them, let them become a state.